So here we are talking about Nope. This is the spoiler review. So I don't know if by now you've seen the movie. I hope you have. I hope you're not just cheating, watching this review when you should be watching the movie. Be a bit unbecoming of you. But as you could probably expect with any Jordan Peele movie, there is some things to talk about with this movie that are very spoilery, hence why this is a separate video. Uh, and it's just so with Get Out, it was definitely a discussion about how people view black people in America as just this healthy body, like this body that they want but can't have, but they don't want any of the caveats socially that come with them. Uh, Us is about if I'm to, I've never exactly been able to nail down exactly what it is he's saying in Us. If I'm to take a guess right here and right now, I think that Us is about how we as a nation treat ourselves as well as all of those surrounding us. So we could have strong family relationship, but what that forces on ourselves can be a very different thing. Especially in today's social sphere, Us has a bit more relevancy now, with just bodily autonomy. Just that's just more or less that movie is just wishing to not have somebody controlling your every actions. And so that brings us to Nope. What's Nope about? Well, Nope is this movie is like, if I'm to summarize it in a way, I would say that this movie is like talking about how we as a society monetize tragedy and how we as a society consume that media. Because with our character Juniper, Jupe, whatever, it's revealed in this movie that he had a television history, and he was on this show called Gordy's Home, and that's a chimpanzee character. It's very like the 80s, the 90s, where it's just like, you gotta have an animal mascot. Like the first thing that comes to mind, well, first two things that come to mind is Alf, which is 80s, and Fuzz Bucket, which I think is also 80s. You gotta have like this kind of cute little sidekick kind of animal character, alien character. Just, I mean, we even see that more like still nowadays with like Family Guy with Brian, American Dad with Roger, as well as the goldfish whom I cannot remember the name of. And it's this companionship, I guess. So during filming of a season 2 episode, the chimpanzee goes nuts and attacks and kills two of the leading actors of the show, and Jupe watches all of this while hiding under a table. And what we see in this movie is that he's still found a way to preserve, or rather, he refuses to let go of that. And it's this built up trauma in him that just kind of manifests itself in other ways throughout the movie, which I found to be an interesting way of portrayal, because we have OJ also has a bit of trauma himself. So does Emerald, because their dad, I would say, is a bit, I don't want to say overbearing, but he kind of leveraged family expectations off of them, and it didn't really affect them that well. OJ seems to not have the oh god, he doesn't seem to have the confidence to really speak out and uh, do the big things that he needs to do in a scene. While Emerald kind of makes up for like kind of being ignored by making sure that people always see her. And like in the scene where we're introduced to her, she's like pitching herself. Um, I thought that was very interesting with those two characters with in regards to that. But then we also have the thing, the alien. So let's talk about that. Um, it has been a long time since I have seen a movie that had a scene in it that made me feel uncomfortable. I feel like the last movie that did that was in Underwater from 2020. That's mostly just because I have a phobia of deep sea anything. Um, this movie does that. There is one specific scene. You probably already know exactly what scene it is, but if you don't, it's the scene after the alien sucks up all the people at the fairground, and they're inside the thing's mouth, and it's a claustrophobic nightmare, and we're not given like a lot of what's going on. It's very chaotic, but we're given enough details to know, like, to piece it together in our minds exactly what is happening here. And it is very unnerving, and just hearing their screams as the thing hovers over their house later on in the movie is just, and the crunching. Ugh. That scene gave me the shakes. Like that gave me the shakes, and they did not leave until I got back in my car and I was able to just sit there and, pardon this very bad pun, digest the movie. But man, that one scene, if nothing else, that one scene is terrifying. It's probably the scariest scene that Jordan Peele, in my opinion, has written, and I don't know if that's gonna change. Oh God. So going back to what I said, this is probably about, it's like monetizing tragedy and how we, um, like how we consume that media, and I think it's very interesting to consider that because, um, as we as I was touching on with Jupe earlier, is that he has this entire hidden room in his office that is all about memorabilia of Gordy's home, and it even has the shoe that's left on the stage, um, and you can tell from a later scene with his wife that he's still not quite exactly there yet, like getting back out there and performing, because uh, she's talking to him, kind of helping him through his lines, and it's not like he has fully been able to distance the trauma of what happened at Gordy's home with um, acting. He hasn't been able to do that. Um, and he actively makes his trauma a thing. Like, it's a continuing um, bit of monetization that he does with like his children are wearing these costumes. They're just ape costumes uh, with like these masks, and in like two scenes in the movie when we see the actual thing what's happening at Gordy's home, um, when Gordy turns and looks at Jupe as he's hiding under the table, his eyes look exactly like those masks. It's just hollow darkness. Um, and I feel like that's a very interesting kind of parallel, because as we get into like the whole thing about the horses, um, Daniel Kaluuya's character OJ tells one person not to look directly in their eyes, and someone also brings up a mirror, and holds it in front of one of the horses, and it freaks out a bit. And as we learn later on in this movie, is that this thing will not come and attack you and take you up into its mouth if you don't look at it. So that makes me feel more affirm in that this is about how we consume tragedy as media, especially with this one character later. I almost completely blanked on this guy. Uh, Emerald calls him TMZ, and I don't know if he actually is supposed to be TMZ, but I will just let it slide because I want it to be a guy from TMZ. Um, and he's just like bugging them, like really getting in on them, and she's just like, "Go away, like go away. You don't want to be here. You don't want to be a part of this." And he just doesn't listen to her, and as a result, he dies. The folly of mankind. Am I right? And I just throughout the movie, they're trying to get video evidence, pictures of this thing, um, so that they can have like some form of money and not have to worry about where they are anymore. Because, yeah. Um, and there's just, I had this one thought, and it got away from me, but it'll come back. It'll come back. Um, but I found it very interesting that we had the parallel of the horses, um, because it's like if you look directly into their eyes, it looks very dark. It's like I don't know if that's the eye or the mouth. I'm not entirely certain about the anatomy of this alien thing. Um, I don't know, but I find it very interesting. Here it is. I find it very interesting that throughout the entirety of the movie, it's them trying to get video footage of this thing, which is by all means has a natural defense mechanism so that it cannot be captured on film. It depowers every bit of electricity nearby, and it's this statement of trying to say, this is the bad thing. This is the thing that we should not be looking at. This is the thing that we should not be trying to glorify, which is what ended up happening at the fair, is that he was trying to glorify this thing, make an attraction out of it when it was just hungry and it was going to eat them anyways. Um, and the whole point of that thing and like how it works is that we shouldn't be looking at this thing. In fact, it would do us better to not be looking at this thing. And I feel like that's what the point of the movie is trying to say about tragedy. And this also relates to what's going on currently in the social sphere, social commentary, is that when it comes to a tragedy, we should not be trying to get in on a big paycheck the second that we can, just to have like this 15 minutes of stardom when it could cost a lot more than just, your time. Like, this could do a lot more to you than you think it will. And I feel like that might be the message that's behind this movie, is that when we look at a tragedy, it's how we how we consume it. It's how we look into it. It's how we film it. It's how we distribute it. Like a great example would be Columbine. Odds are you've probably seen surveillance footage from it, or you at least know about what Columbine is. And the fact that there are so many people that kind of idolize it, that are kind of like constantly wanting to get in on it, is kind of unnerving. And I don't want to quite say unnatural. Like, we as human beings have like this draw to the macabre, and just like something that is very unnatural, and that would be a case of unnatural. Um, but it's how we look into it, because we're just doing like research into something. To just look into it, that's one thing. To like try and figure out exactly what's going on. But the second that we try to become a part of it, that's where it becomes a bit more questionable and dodgy. And I feel like that's exactly what this movie is trying to say, is that when we try to insert ourselves into a situation where we don't belong, is that it could have disastrous consequences. Um, and I feel like that's a pretty deep message. Like every single Jordan Peele movie has something deep in it. Um, so to say that is like not entirely out of the question. I'm pretty sure there are plenty of other uh, analyses that can be done about this movie, but that is just my takeaway from this movie. Is that I believe it to be about how we consume tragedy, and we really should be striving to be doing better than just looking at it and be like, oh yeah, here's this thing. Let me get in on it. No, 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 no. We shouldn't be doing that. We should not be doing that. Nope. So yeah, I just this is a really good movie. I still think that this is probably his weakest. Um, but that's like saying when I say it's his weakest, I mean it's like a 7.5 on a bad day. And the rest I think are like 9.5 ish for like Get Out, 9 for Us, like in that ballpark for those. Um, this one's like on its worst day, a 7.5. On its best day, I'd also probably give it a 9, maybe an 8.5, 8.75. Um, I really recommend this movie because I feel like it's just very interesting. Like, sure, you can just sit there and watch it, um, and enjoy it. Like, it can be enjoyed that way, or you could like dig into its contents and come up with an analysis. I don't think there's any one analysis for this movie, as we've seen with multiple different like directors' discussion with him. Is that he doesn't exactly have one specific thought in mind when it comes to these movies. I feel like that's what makes it really neat, is that Jordan Peele does this thing where it's like he makes this thing. He has a idea of what he's doing, a very good idea, and he doesn't try to narrow it down to one specific idea. He gives it to the audience and lets them figure out what they see in this thing. I feel like as a director, that would be really cool to do. That's like what I would strive to do when it comes to like directing a movie that has a message in it. Is like you don't outright say what the message is unless like directly asked, but you let the fans come up with their own analyses and just see how it fares. And I feel like this movie is no different with that. Sure, you could say it's just a sci-fi movie through and through, um, but there would be bits of this movie that have things that make me question why they're in there if like it doesn't exactly have anything to do with the full of it. Um, so as a whole, I do think that this movie has a message. Um, well, clearly, I just spent like what 20 minutes, almost 20 minutes, talking about what I think it's about. um, I mean, if you're still here, you probably like hearing me talk and drone on and on and on. But that's more or less what I have to say about this movie. Again, broken record time. I think this is a really great movie. I think you should go see it in theaters. 9 out of 10, ballpark, something or other. Um, yeah. The biggest death in this movie is actually Fry's. R.I.P. Rest in peace. Uh, Lost but never forgotten. All right, so as per usual, if you have seen the movie, drop a comment down below. Let me tell you. Let you tell me what you thought of this movie. What you liked, what you didn't like. Go wild. Well, not go wild. Hold on. Let's not endorse wildness. Tell me, like, I don't want to say don't hold back, but like, don't, just because I like the movie, please don't feel like you need to censor your opinions just for my sake. I am endorsing discussion, but please make sure it is appropriate. But that's all of that. If you like the video, like it. If you want to hear more from me, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you get told whenever I decide to make more videos like this. I don't know, maybe I'll do more analyses in the future, or just more reviews in the future, ranking videos. And I'll see you guys in the next one.